Judge Brown Jackson. I want to, though, talk to my panel right now. Linda Carr, she's the president and CEO of Higher Heights. Their focus is to elect more black women to public office. Rebecca Carruthers, she is vice president for Fair Elections Center. Damon Hewitt is president and executive director of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. And also Cliff Albright, co-founder of Black Voters Matter. He is joining us from Boston. Glad to have all of you here. Glenda, it was certainly an amazing day to be out there at the White House to see the looks of joy. There were a number of young girls who were in the audience. There were mothers and grandmothers who actually brought them to this ceremony. There were folks who were American Indian, who were African American, who were white. But I'll be honest with you, the people who were really moved by what took place today, we call them seasoned saints in our church, really the black women who were 60 and older, who were just overjoyed with what they witnessed with their own eyes today.
It was truly an amazing day, Roland. I saw you, I can't wait to see all the videos you collected today. It was, when you talk about church, the church mothers, black women, it felt like Easter Sunday. People were, tell Roland, we were in our jeweled tone outfits. Just, if people have been, the DC area folk know that it's been a gray down here. And the sun broke just for that press conference. And to see the rejoice, I was, Justice Brown Jackson, talked a little bit about a Maya Angelou quote, which was so powerful. When you talk about her standing there in her authentic, unapologetic black woman, a brown-hued black woman with natural hair, telling the story that in one generation she went from segregation to the Supreme Court. It was church. We do call and response. And so the black women in attendance, black women who have been, advocates, activists, elected women. There was, New York, Letitia Tish James, the New York Attorney General, to Charlotte Mayor, Val Lyles, the former mayor of Atlanta, Keisha Lance Bottoms were there. So some of our, elected women from across the country, to the little girls that were there. It is truly a day that talks about how we can continue to reach higher. We've been prepared for this moment. The world now knows what Black women's leadership looks like at the highest level. And I think she stood there in grace and prepared for this moment, but understanding that this is so much bigger than she is, not just from a historic perspective as being the fourth woman that will be seated at the highest court, but at the intersection of her race and her gender, and that she is going to be inspiring generations of young people. I just came back from the Supreme Court where people are gathering, and there are little girls literally of all race and backgrounds running around the Supreme Court steps right now celebrating Ketanji Brown Jackson.
This photo, I shot this photo to give people a sense of what the crowd was like. You saw the live stream. Typically, they leave it on the podium, but you had an opportunity to see the people who were out there, who were amassed there. God, take a full screen of that shot, please. And Rebecca, again, to watch these folks. To see these folks. And as she talked, yes, people, they were waiting to hear the vice president, they're waiting to hear the president, they want to hear from her. And she brought so many sisters to tears with what she had to say, standing there in her full, authentic blackness while speaking.
Roland, I was on a flight headed back to DC during the ceremony, and I just sat there and cried as I watched the ceremony. I'm a Black woman attorney, and just to see this moment after 233 years, we have someone who looks like us on the Supreme Court. And what's so amazing about that, continuing with the church analogy, even from watching the confirmation hearings, it was like we were all in a watch service, keeping watch over this process, making sure that this woman got put on the Supreme Court. So it's a great day. I'm not fooled, especially when we see some of the shenanigans that happened with some of the other members of the Senate who didn't even show proper respect during the vote to actually appoint her to the Supreme Court. I just want to take this moment today just to be happy, just to express joy, and thinking back to Senator Booker's remarks during the confirmation process about the ancestors being with her, and just thinking about all of our ancestors are with us at this moment, watching and proud and so happy that this day has come.
Damon, you were there. For the folks who are watching and listening, just put it through your eyes, through your lens, what it was like to watch the first black woman speak after being confirmed as the 116th Supreme Court Justice.
Well, Roland, first of all, as you know, it felt like a homecoming because it was good to see so many friends together for the first time in person in a while. But they were friends who have been fighting for a common purpose, not just this nomination and confirmation, but fighting for voting rights, fighting for reproductive rights, fighting against police brutality so that black people can be, safe and protected from hate at the same time. And so this one moment is an important one. It's not the end-all, be-all one for all times, but it's important that we celebrate. And we all left and felt full. As you know, there was not a dry eye in the place. Our new justice made big men cry, as along with women and children and everybody else. And so what I loved about her remarks was she complicated the narrative. So people look at her and think they know who she is because she went to Harvard. They think they know who she is because of her hairstyle, but they don't. She is every woman. She complicated the narrative so much, and she left us on a note to remind everyone that she is folk. When she quoted Maya Angelou, when she talked about her faith, we all know that we walk on the giants of shoulders. We all know who paved the way for us, especially those of us who have a lineage who come from people who were enslaved Africans. And to bring that to bear on the national stage, I know she's going to bring that same energy with her to every case, to every decision, whether it be in the public oral argument or on the so-called shadow docket of the Supreme Court. She's going to bring all of us. She said, we did it. We did it. All of us did it. She's going to bring all of us with her every day in this role for decades to come.
Cliff Albright, we talked about this on yesterday, and that is if it wasn't for Georgia, if it wasn't for the election of John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock to the United States Senate, we are not here today. The work that you and Latasha Brown did, we'll hear from Latasha. I caught up with her outside of the White House. Going to those rural towns, the places lots of people don't go to, and really impressing upon them why their vote matter. And when I talked to Reverend Jackson, we'll hear from him as well. So many people who I talked to after, they said, today was why we vote.
No, you're exactly right, Roland. 11,000 and change votes, here in the state of Georgia in the presidential election, similar numbers in regards to those two Senate races. And that means that every vote mattered. And that means every vote in Metro Atlanta, but it also means every vote in rural communities all across the state of Georgia, in places like Cairo, Georgia, that most people can't find on a map from Cairo, Egypt. But those votes matter, and that's why we do the work that we do. If I said this to a group last night, I'm in Boston right now, and I spoke to a group last night, and I told you, the next time as we're going out doing our voter mobilization, if we come across anybody who says that our votes don't matter, you tell them we got a justice named Ketanji, because that was made possible largely because of Black voters that came out. And so, we got elections coming up, and as I said yesterday, and as I've said before, and I'll say it again, elections have consequences. This historic moment, both parts of this historic moment, right? The first Black vice president being able to call out the vote for the first Black woman on the Supreme Court. Both of those moments made possible because elections have consequences and our votes matter. And so that's what that's part of the evidence that we'll be talking about as we're going out and talking to voters all across this nation in this upcoming election cycles. Elections have consequences, and we've seen things happen, historic things happen, because of our ability to turn out.
Glenda, one of the things that I have consistently tried to convey to the audience on this show is that, yes, we can be mad, we can be frustrated, we can say we haven't gotten what we wanted. But the reality is this: sitting out is not an option. What we have to understand is that somebody is going to win. And then when President Joe Biden said today that he has appointed more black women to the appeals court than all previous presidents combined. But people have to understand, these judges, they're lifetime. They can choose to stay life. We had Judge Vanessa Gilmore on the show yesterday. She just retired in January, but she spent 28 years on the federal bench. Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away, on the bench. And so we talk. People say, "Well, man, I don't really see how it matters." Guess what? The president can only be there a maximum number of 8 years. These judges can be there 20, 30, 40, 50 or more so years.
Yeah. President Biden is living his values of diversity and inclusion. And he started that on the campaign trail when he committed to nominating a black woman to the Supreme Court. He then committed that he was going to have a woman as a running mate for vice president, and he chose a black woman to be his running mate. His cabinet is one of the most diverse cabinets. On that front row, you had Secretary of HUD Marcia Fudge sitting on the front row of that press conference today. His White House staff is filled of diversity, and particularly black women, all the way up to senior level staff members. And his administration looks like America. That's progress. We are living in some of the most politically divisive times. And so there's work to be done, as Cliff said. We need to change the configuration of our Congress. And then we need to get to work to holding our elected officials accountable and creating the environment for our champions to push progressive policies. So what do we need to do? We need to elect, as much as we celebrate today, we've never elected a black woman governor. Although Kamala Harris ascended to the front of the chamber as the president of the presiding over the U.S. Senate, there was 0 black women sitting in the Senate to cast their votes. And so this year, in 2020, in November, we have an opportunity to elect governors with an S, black women senators with an S. We have the most number of black women running for office up and down the ballot. And when you have diverse decision-making tables, they make better decisions. And certainly, I believe that Justice Brown Jackson is going to show that when you have diverse benches, like the Supreme Court, those benches make better legal decisions.
To that point, in terms of moving forward, Rebecca, as I said, she ascends. She says, finally, we are now here. But the point that we have to keep making is more history can actually unfold. There can be more federal judges, more district judges, more appeals court judges filling the pipeline, so it's not just the one. Now is an opportunity for us to keep pressing, and the reality is, I said this last night, you've got critical Senate races. If Democrats are able to hold the majority and expand the majority, we can guarantee that there are more black federal judges. And then there's some sister out there who is younger than Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson who could be appointed. Donald Trump and McConnell, they appointed a 35-year-old white woman who was only 11 years removed from law school. And so people need to understand that sitting out the election cannot be an option, because we must be thinking about the judicial branch and the executive and the congressional offices as well.
So I run a national nonpartisan voting rights organization. And one thing that I really want to point out here, since the 2020 election, there have been so many laws across the country that suppresses the right to vote. And so as we think about the critical races up and down the ballot across the country this year, we still need to urge Congress to pass meaningful voting rights legislation. We have a gutted Voting Rights Act. So I'm happy with the events that unfolded today, that Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson is a staunch supporter of voting rights. She actually believes in the fundamental right to vote. But we also need Congress to act. We are 7 months today away from the general election. We're already seeing that in the primaries that are taking place across the country right now, that some of the people who are trying to register to vote this year, when we look at what happened in Texas the other month, tens of thousands of people were denied to be able to register to vote because of the new rules that Texas has put into place since the last election. So we really need to lean on Congress and urge Congress to pass meaningful voting rights legislation.
But the reality, Cliff and Damon, is that it's been made perfectly clear by leaders, by Sinema and Manchin. They're not going to do that, which means we've got to make sure that we are putting Sherry Beasley from North Carolina in, putting in Mandela Barnes in from Wisconsin, Val Demings in Florida. So the opportunity, Cliff, is there to expand, to ensure and get what Rebecca just said.
Yeah, I mean there's a bunch of Senate seats that are up for grabs, right? There's a couple that we need to defend in places like Georgia and Arizona, but there's some seats that are up for grabs, and in many of those seats, as you named just a few, that it's Black candidates and Black women that are running. And so, if we weren't clear about the importance of these Senate seats before the past year, before we've seen the struggle going on over voting rights, before we saw this struggle over the Supreme Court nomination, if we weren't clear about it before, we best be clear about it right now. This election cycle matters. These Senate races matter, and across all of these states, we've got to take it seriously. I just want to say a quick word, if you don't mind, Roland, because you got some folks that are, and especially brothers, not many, that might be making the point. I've seen it a little bit on Twitter. What's the big deal? Why is this so? She's not this or that, right? Why is it just about the Black woman and all of that stuff? Not from a lot of whatever, but we got to have real talk. That there's a little bit of that out there. I just think that it's important that we point out this is an important moment for me. Like, this is a historic moment. I recognize, I'm a student of history. I recognize the importance. But even for me, and I've had tears in my eyes at various points over the past couple of days, but even for me, it can't mean the same thing that it means to sisters all across this country. Like you mentioned it, you were there, you see the little girls outside the Supreme Court and outside the White House, what it means to be represented. And we talk about Kamala being the first Black woman vice president, but it follows a Black man as president, right? We talk about Sister Ketanji, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson being the first Black woman. It follows not one, but two Black men that had already been there, right? Even the vote itself, sisters didn't get it for decades after brothers got it with the 15th Amendment, because the 15th Amendment did not give Black women the right to vote, right? And we talk about all the Black representation in Reconstruction, Black women didn't get to participate in that. And so this is a particularly important moment for Black women. I think we need to lean into that. And as brothers that I know that you, Roland, and my brother Damon, who's on here, falls in this category, we've really got to lift that up unapologetically, that this is a special and historic moment for sisters, and lean into that historic nature of that.
All right, folks.